Liftoff and the clock has started.
Goal.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Vobie One-Eye Kenobi Showbie with me, Richard Vobes. Unfortunately, the lovely Julia can't make it again tonight. She's just recovering from her illness. She's okay. She's back to normal, but she just said she was a bit lackluster. And so I said, well, in that case, without the luster, you can't come on the show. If she brought a feather duster, different thing. So it's just me, I'm afraid, for another of our little soirees. I hope that's all right. On the 10th of November, 2021, you've got me for an hour, so make the most of me. This show is an interactive show. You can type, of course, as you know, but also you can give us a call on 0793 474 6790. And we do like to hear you and have conversaziones with you. We have one video today, ladies and gentlemen, one video, and an email from Alan Sandell, which I'm not 100% sure whether I understand it or not, but I thought I'd give it to you. He says, an observation for what it's worth. Oh, an observation, we like those. He says, I enjoy researching the history of places and condensing various sources into one with my own slant on it. Fair enough. And I post a picture or two that I've taken and add the history. So far, in the Bald Explorer group, which I understand is a thing, I don't really know what it is, he says, I only have one reaction to the history content. Is it that people react to the picture and not the text? My eye candy pictures of nature are by far the most liked. They require no knowledge or research. Are we done with acquiring knowledge? And if so, is it a bad road? The human brain is light years away from the best of the brain of the sorry, I'll start that again. The human brain is light years ahead of the best computer. We should keep it that way. Well, we should do by what? Acquiring knowledge and not necessarily looking it up when we need it. Is that what you mean? I'm not 100% sure what you mean. But anyway, there we are. Nice jacket this evening, says Mark Burgess. Thank you very much. I wanted to be nice and bright in today's show. But there we are. Michael White, you are a plonker, but I like you. That's very nice. That was Jackie Lowe. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So there we are. That set the tone. Are we dumbing down everything in our lives? Do people just like pictures? I'm finding that I'm less and less, unfortunately, on the Bald Explorer group, or indeed on Facebook, or on anything, on social media. To me, I don't understand the appeal anymore. When it first came out, I thought maybe it was a good thing. I thought it was quite nice to be able to share bits and pieces of our lives. But then when I realised, of course, that this is just a place for the corporates to mine our data and learn more about us and then start using it against us in the form of advertising, I thought, well, why am I going to contribute to that? Other than promoting my stuff, which of course are my videos, I wasn't going to start sharing any of my personal life, although some of my personal life is, of course, in the videos, but then that's the bit I choose to edit in, not the bits that I share and just show pictures of my dinner or my children going to school for the first time in their school uniform, or all those sort of things. We use this, of course, this form of social media to broadcast, but if I had an aerial and was able to afford a proper broadcast license and all the rest of it, then maybe I would do that. So I don't really class this in the same way. This is a private little show. You've chosen to watch me. I'm reading out your comments every now and again, and that's the way it works. But I use people who prefer this social media. Do you think that it's just that we like looking at pretty pictures? Is that why Instagram is so successful? But we don't want to read anything at the moment. Be interested in your thoughts and comments on that. Give us a call on 0793 4746 790. Good evening to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's very kind of you. If, of course, at any time you feel the urge to donate some cash towards a good cause, and you realise that the Battersea Cats Home is no longer taking in any cats since they have knocked down the chimneys, then don't forget the Bald Explorer is a great place to donate and ensure that he makes those videos. He does such a good job on it. Terry Banton says information overload. Is that what the social media is? Too much information that we just choose to look at the pictures and go, oh, isn't that nice? Look, little kittens gambling away. Kerry Baldwin says, I'm losing the will to live with Facebook. Targeted ads every fourth post. Coffee, don't drink it. Vegan food, they can F off. Pet care, never had a pet. She says, I only watch the Vobes show. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And even then, sliced bread should have been invented after the Vobes show. Yes, I completely agree with that. Bonnie H says, I love social media. Maybe you could give us a call on 0793 4746 790, Bonnie, and tell us why and what it is about social media that you love so much. Be interested to know that. Jeff and Mandy says they love the Ollie video. Thank you very much. I hope you gave it a thumbs up. Very kind of you. Mr. Mocky says a hairy hole. I'm not quite sure what that means, a hairy hole. And David Vad says, are they still sending cats up chimneys? I dare say they probably are. And Kerry Baldwin is laughing her socks off. Other things that I wanted to ask you in today's show, seeing as the lovely Julia is not here to ask and debate with and share the humour that is. COP26 is coming to the end. Could you care less? Did you care about it? It's supposed to be the event of the century, isn't it? COP26, all this thing about climate change, saving the world and all. It's coming to the end. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, just to remind you who he is, he gave a closing speech to the thing. I watched it at 4:30 this afternoon whilst I was making bread. I was doing something far more important than what he was doing, in my opinion. Making bread is very important, whereas what all he was doing was ignoring questions about sleaze in the Tory government and trying to make out that COP26 was great. But then in the end he did answer a question to say, well, actually I don't think we can fix climate change all in one go. It's going to take a long time, which is basically what everybody said. So let's give it some time. Maybe another 100 years would be a good idea. But what did you think? Was it worth it? Could you give a monkeys about it? Did you care? Were you watching it? Did you read the speeches? Did you listen to the debates? I want to know. Or were there other things in your life which were far more important? Or do you not give a monkeys in the end about this climate change or the green agenda? Do get in touch. 0793 4746 790. The phone, I believe, is on. I'm almost startled that nobody's rung in 7 minutes into the show. Bonnie says, give me a few minutes to get the wine gum out of my teeth. Fair enough. Mr. Mocky says a transmitting hairy hole for the Vobes radio. I really have no idea what this hairy hole business is about. Jackie Lowe says, I like social media. Fair enough. My son got a lift to Heathrow when he was stuck because I was able to ask on Facebook. Yes, I dare say that there is some merits to some of it. But does that have to be what we call social media? Is that just not being social? Maybe, if you had friends outside social media in the old days, we would have asked them and said, oh, John, are you anywhere near the airport? Could you give him a lift? That would be absolutely lovely. We have a caller. Let's find out who it is. Hello, welcome to the Vobe Show.
Sean from London.
Sean from London, lovely to hear from you. We were hoping it was going to be Bonnie then, but you've picked that post now. She'll come in and say, I couldn't get through. But anyway, how are you? Are you a fan of social media?
I was. Unfortunately, a lot of the jobs that I get are from social media Facebook groups.
When you say jobs, what do you mean?
So if I decided I wanted to go into TV to go and do a contract for a few weeks.
Yes.
You've got to be members of secret Facebook groups now.
You've got to be a member of... Well, if they're secret, how can you be a member of them?
Well, there's one which you've got to be invited to, and it's got the weirdest title. It's called People in TV Who Know People in TV Who Are Looking for Jobs in TV.
Blimey, that sounds like a Victorian book title, doesn't it? You know how the
And
Victorians used to release these papers with these extremely long titles?
And it's one of those groups that you only find out if you've had a job in TV, where somebody else will tell you about it.
Right.
But otherwise, I would like to come off Facebook altogether.
Well, I mean, I like you. I mean, I have one principal use for it, and that is to put my videos on. And actually, I mean, a number of people sort of swear blind they watch my videos on Facebook, but of course they don't, because it's really a link that goes to YouTube. It goes to my website, and then in my website is buried the YouTube page. And I remember one listener, viewer, saying, I don't watch YouTube. I don't watch it. I don't touch it. I don't like it. And I thought, well, it's the only way you can watch my video, because the video is no longer embedded into Facebook, because Facebook played such silly buggers when I tried to embed my videos in the end that I couldn't be asked to fiddle and fart with it, so I just give a link to the website in which, as I say, the YouTube video is embedded. So they do. But that's the principle.
And then when you go and look at your statistics for YouTube, mine will tell me that 52% of my viewers came from Facebook. So why would I want to get rid of something? But I have stopped basically putting stuff onto my own page. It's now just it's those family members that you meet up at funerals with. That's what I've got now.
Right. So other than for work purposes, you really don't use social media in its entirety.
No, but it's interesting those days when you say to yourself, "I'm going to go out today, and I'm not going to take the phone with me."
Right.
And then after a while, you start to enjoy the day. And then when you go home, you sort of think, oh, I'm going to have thousands of messages. And then you go home and there's absolutely nothing.
No. It's like the days when I used to, when you were tempted in the very first... Hang on a second. Hang on a minute. In the first times when I got a mobile phone, when mobile phones came in and the whole thing about, oh, yes, if you get a mobile phone, agents will be able to ring you and you'll be able to get work. And I thought to myself, oh, this is the thing. I'll buy this. And of course, it was very expensive to ring, but you weren't going to ring. You were going to let the agent ring you when they needed you. And that was great. Only the thing was, you've got this sodding mobile phone. It was too expensive for the agents to ring you, so they didn't bother. They just left a message on your answer machine. And so you still... Yeah.
In response to Audrey Forbes Hamilton's comment,
yes.
Jobs...
For the boys.
Job for the boys, then. I've always been employed by females. You find these days that male people, that men in charge of things are really, really small in TV.
You mean they're dwarfs?
Yes.
Well, that's handy then.
So, yes.
All right,
women are in charge.
We're going to get... hopefully Bonnie will come on and explain exactly why she's in 37 Facebook groups and what she could possibly do about it and who she subscribes to on YouTube channels. Thank you, Sean. Lovely to talk to you.
All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye. So there we are. That was Sean James Cameron telling us he needed his Facebook really to in order to get some television work, and he had to join a Facebook group. Well, I've never been invited, but then I don't want to work in television ever again. Thank you very much. Done that, and don't need to do it again. We have another caller. Let's hope that this is Bonnie this time. Hello, welcome to the Vobes Show.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Bonnie Pad.
Ah, the Bonnie Pad. Nice to hear from you, Bonnie. How are you?
I'm fine. Now, can you hear me properly? Because I've got my AirPods in my ears, and I don't know if it makes a difference.
I don't know if it makes a difference, but we can hear you, and as long as you can hear us, it sounds absolutely great.
Okay, darling. Now, Facebook. I absolutely love it.
Why?
Oh, my God.
What is it about Facebook?
Did life exist before Facebook?
Well, we had forums. We had forums, which were...
I know.
I think that's more of a bloke thing. So what is it about Facebook then?
Okay, let me start, but you'll have to interrupt me. So...
Don't worry, I will interrupt you because I'm like that.
Well, I knew that.
Yeah.
So one thing that I do, I put a post on Facebook every day in the evening so that when my auntie, who's in her 80s and lives in Jersey and doesn't go out very much, when she gets up in the morning, it's the first thing she sees when she has her cup of tea and breakfast.
Right.
And she loves it.
And she loves it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
do
that.
that post is just for her? Is it on a private thing or is it a public thing or?
No, everybody can see who follows me or
Yeah.
I follow or I'm a friend of or whatever.
Right.
But I don't have lots and lots and lots of friends. I only have, I think, 45. And when it gets up to 50, I edit out people that I don't communicate with very much. So I keep it very small. And then a lot of my mates, they will put comments on that as well because they know that my auntie is a bit lonely. And so they've never met her. But they put lots of funny things on for her, and everybody basically puts things on for my auntie. So she's got really nice stuff to look at every morning.
Right. Okay. So that's one.
So that's the first thing.
That's the first thing.
So that's like being in a little village, but not really being in a village because we're all spread out. So that's just a communication thing. Anyway, I'm in 37 different groups. So I'm in groups to do with history. I'm in groups to do with beach huts. I'm in groups to do with saxophone. I'm in groups to do with music from the 1970s. I'm in groups to do with football because I follow football. So all of these groups give me information that I want to know or show pictures and inspire me. And sometimes I'll see something and I'll go down an internet wormhole and I can spend hours reading stuff which I never would have even thought about if I hadn't seen it on Facebook first.
Right. So what does that say then? I mean, if Facebook wasn't around, you wouldn't be doing all of that. You'd be doing something else, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd probably be in a library, going down the library wormhole. I don't know. I was thinking the other day, what did we do before Facebook?
I mean, do you spend a lot of time?
I
mean, it sounds if you're in 57 groups or something like that, that you spend a long time whiffling through all this stuff. Must take forever.
I do.
Do you ever get anything else done? I know you've got your bucket list of which you want to sort of go on a moon version or whatever it is that you've got on your bucket list that you haven't yet to do.
Oh yeah,
but I mean,
lots of bucket lists.
But if do you not find that this is just a way of ebbing your life away? You're reading all this stuff, but
I love it. I love it because I'm hyperactive. I've got ADHD, so I'm hyperactive. So I get up at 6 a.m. I don't go to bed till 1 a.m.
So you don't get much sleep then, do you?
No, I'm turning into Margaret Thatcher, I think. But I just don't get much sleep. So I have a lot more hours in the day than anybody else. And how are you supposed to fill them? What are you supposed to be doing if you're not reading stuff or, I spend a lot of time doing loads and loads of stuff.
So you're reading all this. You're reading all this stuff, and I get all that. I mean, I've got a load of books on my shelf which I read, and when I'm sitting there reading, I feel guilty that I'm not doing something because I'm reading. I'm just sitting there reading.
But you are doing something.
Well, I am. I know.
Something.
Yes, I know, but it's not. Sometimes I kid myself. It's not terribly productive. I should be out there making a video, in which is of some use to other people, rather than me just sitting there minding my own business doing the reading.
Isn't life just about enjoying every single moment because you don't know when your next moment will stop?
Yeah, well, that's a philosophical point that we can have a discussion on. But I'm just worried that you're not worried. I'm interested whether reading all this stuff, what you do with the knowledge. Does it go in one ear and go out the next? I mean, is it just that you're living for the moment and not actually acting on anything that you have read about, or are you just killing? Are you killing time?
I'm not killing time. I'm using time. I absolutely love it. So every time I'm on the train, I'm doing Facebook. If I'm going to be a bit whatever. If I'm in the bathroom doing other things, I'm on Facebook. If I'm waiting for the stew to cook, I'm on Facebook. So what I am is a multitasker. So I feel like I don't waste time.
You're a multitasker.
Did you fall off your chair?
No, it's just that I found that so absurd. You're a multitasker because you're stirring soup and being on Facebook. Yes. Okay. But I'll put my cards on the table because, like straight talking. I find that bizarre. I find it bizarre that...
I am bizarre.
Well, each to their own. And this is not me judging you in any way by saying it's bad or good or bad, and everybody has to do what
I am bizarre. And I know that I consume a huge amount of information, and I'm an information junkie.
Yes, but what do you do with that information?
Oh, it becomes part of me. It fills me up with happiness. So I love knowing lots and lots of things, and also I share a lot of the stuff. So if I find something really interesting, then I'll share it with other people. So I run quite a few Facebook groups,
right?
And so I put things that I find are interesting on the Facebook groups that I run.
Is there any chance? Sorry to interrupt you, but is there any chance that there's a bloke, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's an international American bloke who's a big influencer and runs a lot of companies. I can't remember his name. He does YouTube videos and swears a lot and what have you. But he was inspired to get off his butt and do things because he once worked in a care home. And in the care home, he said that he came across these people in their 80s and they were sitting there reminiscing about their lives, but also talking about the things that they regretted, that they never did these other things, because they spend a lot of time just watching the television or reading the paper or not actually doing very much. And it hit home with me that I would never want to be in a situation where I get and think, oh, if only I hadn't done all that sitting on Facebook and just not doing anything. Than actually do you ever feel that life is slipping away? I mean, you say you're using time, but that you could be doing other things.
But I do so much anyway that in a way
you don't have any
Facebook
time
is
for it. When do you get time to do anything else if you're on 57?
Don't forget.
I'll try not to forget.
Don't forget, I'm awake from 6 a.m. till 1 a.m. That's a lot of hours to fill up.
You're awake from 6 a.m. You mean you're awake from 1 a.m. till 6?
No, I'm asleep from 1 a.m. until 6, but I'm awake all the other hours. So
okay.
I'm only asleep for 6 hours out of 24. 18 hours a day of being awake and being very awake. I'm a very awake person.
Right.
Annoyingly so. I mean, my hubby says that if I wasn't doing all these things, I'd be even more annoying. And
he married you.
Yeah, exactly. And he says I have to spread myself around thinly.
Oh, right.
Otherwise everybody gets irritated by me.
Right.
I totally get it. I am quite irritating because I'm full on and I'm busy and I'm into everything.
So here's the thing. Terry Banton just says, I prefer fresh air to Facebook, to going out.
I do lots of walking. Loads of walking.
Gary V, that's the bloke. Sean James Cameron, thank you very much. Gary V was the chap I was thinking about. He also adds that gone are the days that people used to talk on trains and buses. Do you talk to strangers much?
I do. I stopped and talked to the gardeners down the road today, and hubby went, oh my God, other people it takes them 20 minutes to get up the road. You, it takes an hour.
Oh, because you're stopping and chatting away.
Well, if I go for a 3-hour walk, what should be a 3-hour walk ends up as 5 hours because I talk to everybody who's got a dog.
Right.
Anyway,
so that's more of a dawdle than a walk, isn't it? You're just sort of shuffling along and talking to all and some. But at least that's keeping you busy, I suppose, and it keeps you off Facebook because there are real people.
Yeah, but they're real people on Facebook. My auntie's on Facebook, and she's real.
Yes, I
I've
understand.
made some brilliant friends on Facebook,
Yeah.
really good friends on Facebook. And in fact, this is bizarre because this is just coincidence, but yeah, I met this woman on Facebook called Karen, and we did some chatting, and we ended up meeting yesterday over in Worthing at a place called the Sound Studio, where together we jammed on our saxophones. Actually, we didn't jam; we made horrible noises.
Marmalade.
And the chap came along to see if anybody was being murdered at one point. But anyway, she was pretty good, and I just made horrible noises. But I wouldn't have met her if it wasn't for Facebook, and we're going to do it once a month now.
Fantastic.
So I think Facebook, so long as you curate it properly and you edit it and you manage it and it doesn't manage you, I think that's the difference. So I manage it, and I only consume the bits that I want.
So what about the advertising and all the abuse and the comments, the nasty comments and that sort of thing? Does that worry?
I block people.
Right.
I've blocked over 400 people.
Yeah.
On Twitter, I've got a record of all the people I've blocked. So that's 450 people on Twitter I've blocked. On Facebook, if anybody annoys me, they're gone. So I have a very nice time on social media because I was quite fierce in the early days.
Well, it does sound like you've got an angle on it. I mean, there's a lot of younger people who live their lives on it, who perhaps, I mean, I know you're retired, and so you have your thing about the lack of sleep and what have you. But what do you feel, before you go, what do you feel then about younger people? If I was a young person of 18, I mean, I know I'm in my early 20s, but if I was a young person of 18 with my life ahead of me and I was spending the same amount of time as you do on Facebook, would that worry you?
Well, when I was working, I didn't spend as much time, but I did spend lots of time on Twitter because I got lots of work from Twitter.
Yes.
So it was a really good social media platform for getting work. Now that I'm retired and I've got lots of time on my hands, I use Facebook to find things to do. I think if you're young, it's different. My son deleted Facebook, probably because I was putting so much on it. So he's not part of Facebook at all, but he's in his 30s and he's busy. Yeah. You know, he's working. You know, I do think that it's mainly older people now that are on Facebook, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. It's sort of the shine, as it were, for the younger people of well, there's always a new social media thing, isn't there?
Well, I joined TikTok, but I don't understand it, so I think possibly TikTok's not for me. No. But I'll try anything once, you know. Yeah, anyway,
I've heard.
So I'm going to go back to my wine gums and go and see what the comments are.
Yeah, good for you. Well done. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Nice to have you on the show. Take care. Bye-bye. So there we are. Bonnie seems to have got a angle on it, and I think she was very up there when she was arguing against me, saying, well, basically, I think it's a waste of time sitting there, all those things. But she was very keen to get over that. She wasn't wasting her time, but she was enjoying her time. So there you go. You can't argue with that. Jackie Lowe says, the Vobes show, of course, is where all the unreal people are. Thank you very much. I think Jackie also mentioned that she likes Facebook, and she said, I'm just trying to look back where she says, I feel Facebook keeps me connected with old friends and it tells me what's going on locally, shows and do's to go to. Well, I guess that's it. But I guess maybe I'm asking the wrong questions here. What do you call something that you rely on, where you rely on something far too much? Is it, what's the word that you have, like, is it the shoulder that you, is it, there's a term, I can't remember what the term is, but do you think people rely on that? They just go on that instead of doing other things. But it seems that some people have a good angle on it. I personally can't stand the place, and I just avoid. I hate seeing people sharing pictures of. It comes up on the feed, and I just think, why am I looking at this? I don't. I just, I can't help but see as I log on to Facebook. There's the timeline which has everybody else's dross on it, and I quickly go onto the Bald Explorer, post my stuff in. I have to go into the Bald Explorer group where a lot of people there are posting interesting things and marvelous things, and that's the best group on Facebook, of course, because I started it, in my humble opinion, of course. And I look at that, and then I get off the thing, and but I find one of the most irritating things about social media is every of these social media platforms have ways of messaging you. You know, whether it's a direct message on Facebook, whether it's a Twitter message, whether it's an Instagram message, and I don't see them because I don't trawl around looking at, have I got messages on this? Have I got messages on that? Are there messages? Email me. That's the only way that and I go in, and eventually Julia, who does a bit of admin on my Bald Explorer stuff, she'll say, you do realise there's some messages there for you that you haven't seen for 6 weeks. And I go, is there? Because I don't look. I hate the thing. But I do like getting the messages, but I'd rather people just email me. Michael White says something to Mr. Mocky. 450 down, says Leonard Smith. About 8 million billion to go. Not quite sure what that is. Is it an addiction? There we are. Is it an obsession? Is it addictive? Who knows? Well done, Bonnie. Lovely to hear from you. Interesting debate, Bonnie. There we go. Joanna Jones says, I'm so glad I grew up in the days before social media, if I am honest. Well, I would totally agree with you. Looking at the screen for all that time, it can't be good for you, but who knows? I get a lot of likes, but no dates, says Terry Banton. You're going to the wrong place, I think. Jackie Lowe says, depending on what you look at, mine is gardening stuff, Ellesmere stuff, clothes made in China for tiny people. Clothes made in China for tiny... I think the Chinese, they make clothes for everybody, don't they? I don't think it matters what size you are. Most of our clothes come from there and is imported in. I think that's another issue altogether. We're going to change the subject. Coming up to our half past, having a lovely debate here on a Wednesday evening, which is fantastic. I've got a fantastic video for you tomorrow morning with Dumpman and me. I expect you'll all be looking forward to that. A little bit of history in the Sussex region, which will be very exciting. But before all that, Ray of Hope. Ray of Hope has sent in a video. He has got to grips with another piece of nostalgic music, and nostalgic music is going to be part of our next quest in the show today. So let's go into and see what Ray of Hope has for us.
Could be better, but there we are.
So there we go, a little bit of Buddy Holly there, I believe. Thank you very much, Ray. That was absolutely superb. Great to have a little musical break on the show. We very much appreciate that. Now, if you think I'm out of breath, that's because I just quickly ran downstairs to top up my water. Had to be done. Now, I mentioned nostalgia there. How important, I want to ask you, is nostalgia for you? Are you somebody who likes to look back? We do a lot of nostalgic things here. Occasionally, I make impressions of people from the old days of film. and television. Oh no, something I'm going about. There we are, Bernard Cribbins. And as you know, I enjoy doing it. But is nostalgia a thing of the past? Well, of course it is. But do you live in the past? Are you people who sort of crave for the past and would like to relive those days? Or do you just sort of dip into the past and look at the best things and forget about the rest? How important is nostalgia to you? Or are you somebody who says, actually, the past is the past. I don't care about it. I am going to just concentrate on the here and now. And is the here and now worth looking at? Have we improved things these days completely? Or are there things from the past that you would like to see in the future? And that's very much how I treat nostalgia. I mean, there's a lot of, as in television programs and films and things, and those elements of the past that I really love, and I wish that we had more of that. The old style of comedy, for example, the old style of acting, the kind of characters that we used to have on screen. You don't see those anymore. In some ways, I think that we've become a lot cruder and ruder, and we're a lot more slovenly than you see in the past. Now, I only lived in my past, which goes back 50-something years, but prior to that, people were living in what appears to me, in many times, or is at least represented, in a much nicer, ordered way. Of course, there was all those problems with health and things that were nasty, of which we did have, and conditions and things, and so that, you know, we've obviously moved on from various things. But are you somebody who looks at the past with rose-tinted glasses, or are you somebody who looks at the past and think, no, that's awful, I don't like anything of the past, we're so much better? And clearly we are. We never have lived in a much better time, apart from maybe this slightly strange tyrannical government way that we're living at the moment, globalisation. I'd be interested to know what you think of that. Let's find out if anybody is talking about it in the chat room. And Audrey Forbes says, nostalgia isn't what it used to be. What a shower, says Lord Jeffrey. Absolute shower. I work in archives, says Starby, so technically it is my job to care. Yeah, do we care much about the past? How much should we care? And does it really influence us? Be interested, actually, Starsby, if you gave us a call on 07934746790 and tell us why you do work in the past and what it means to you. Station Master Choice says we cannot deal with the future properly if we don't learn from the past. And I think that's a very true situation, although it does seem that we continually make the same mistakes again and again and again. Particularly, it would appear the higher up the echelons of power you get, the more you seem to disregard the past and make those mistakes. Or is that just how I perceive it? Lisa L says massively important. I love looking back, and I feel sad that some things have changed. Does things change too quickly? In my opinion, life is rolling along at a huge rate of knots. That change is coming in far quicker than I think the human condition can allow. But then I am of a certain age, of which, of course, I've lived long enough to understand what the past is. My son, who is 28 years younger than me, is he 28? Well, he's 30, so yes, he's nearly that sort of age. He's 28. He was 28 when I was born, so he must be 28 years younger than me. My eldest son, who, whenever I talk about this, sort of thinks of the past as something that is, irritating in some fashion, and that anyone looking back would be silly, and that the rate of change is perfectly normal. But then they've been born into a time in which the rate of change is the norm. But for me, the rate of change in the last 20 years is much quicker than it was when I was younger. But is that just a perception? I mean, we do know that things are changing much quicker than that, because in the ye olde days, everybody was a labourer or a farmer, or they worked in a factory and their father did the same job and all of that, and change was much slower. Connor McLeod says comedians of the 1970s were very racist and sexist. Funny back at then, embarrassing now. Yeah, well, this is the thing. Humour, of course, is something that, like, I suppose, political statements or books and novels or anything about the current state of whenever you are in will, of course, be very different from now. And I guess people are judging events in history, how people reacted to them by today's standards, and not thinking about how they reacted to them back in the day. So all these people who are revisionists trying to rewrite history and say, oh, well, this person was a slave owner, therefore he is completely and utterly bad, are thinking by how we feel about it today. And when you think, well, it was only up until 2 years ago when one black American was shot or strangled by the police by someone putting on a knee on it, we weren't terribly worried about all these things. And suddenly this villain who's killed is suddenly made into a hero, and it crosses the Atlantic, and we're all worried about it, and now we're knocking down statues and reevaluating everything, where 2 years ago we weren't really worried one way or another about it, although we would moan and groan a little bit, some people would, but it seems to have come to an apex in this country. But are we not missing the point there, that we're judging these people by today's standards that we find abhorrent, and maybe quite rightly so, but those people weren't living in today's, and maybe in 100 years' time people will look at us and think that we're completely mad and barking. And surely we've got to understand that people do not think the same at any one point in history. Alison O'Brien says, would love to see greengrocers, bakers and other things that were on the high street. I would rather go back to those days. It would be nice, I guess. I mean, I do remember the bakers and the... I nearly said candlestick makers, so I don't actually remember those. I'm not that old. But I do remember the independent shops that did a lot of the basics before the supermarkets came in. And I do remember the supermarkets coming. Technology, says Colonel Cragratty, seems to drive our pace of life quicker now. Would we like to live without some of our technology? And that is the weirdest of things, was it not? Because I do remember Tomorrow's World back in the 1970s telling us that in the future we would have so much more leisure time and that technology would enable us to relax. But actually it's done the opposite. It's made us work much harder. We're able to be communicated anywhere on the planet, and it means our bosses can ask us to do stuff that ordinarily they would only be able to do when we were in the office. Lord Geoffrey Harrison says, I knew things were changing when Marathon went to sneakers. Yes, that's true. Ron Langley says, so we have, Bernie. Nothing wrong with that. I don't think. Nostalgia for me is an escape. It keeps me calm and sane, he says. Yes. Paul Cockrell says, if only we could bring back Bakelite. Yeah, that would be the days. Bonnie H says, I'm very nostalgic for the 60s and 70s in terms of music. Ron Langley says, I'd like to go back to the future. Okay. Michael White says they should read about the Bantu and the Cushion. I don't know what that is. Maybe I should read about it myself. Elaine Whitelock says, too much violence and anything goes these days, which is, I think, is very harmful. Where Audrey Forbes says, now everyone has gone, I wish I could talk to them again and ask them more questions. Yes, it's interesting, those when people are no longer here, you got think of millions of questions that you could have asked them, but you never did. That is very sad. What else have we got? The Bonnie H is asking, anyone else listen to Johnny Walker's BBC Two 1970s radio show Sunday afternoons? No, I'm afraid I don't listen to that. Mickey Bain says, yes, Richard, I believe you are right in the rewriting of history. And Bonnie says, I'd rather be watching a YouTube film than scrub the front step. I don't know that was the choice, though, was it? I'm not suggesting by looking back that you either have to watch a YouTube or scrub the step. But, Bonnie, it does seem that you'd much rather be sitting there looking at screens than... You don't have much time for anything else by the sounds of it than scrubbing the step. I don't mind a bit of manual labour, actually, as it happens. I quite like that. That's why I chop my wood and light my fire in order to make a meal. I don't understand this obsession, this hypnotic world that we live in, that we're told that we've got to live in this world where we can click our fingers or we can ask Electra to do things for us. I love a bit of manual labour. I like to actually do things for myself. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. Hello, are you there? I think you may have rung off. No, you rung off. He was there, but do ring again, whoever it was. I do like to do the stuff. I love that cutting of the wood. Yes, sometimes when it's a bit cold and it's a bit wet or whatever and thing like that. But, this thing about cleaning the front sketch, I don't mind if I've got it. I mean, today I was hoovering up the house. It was quite nice. It was pleasant. I like to feel that I have a role in the house that I live in, that machines and everything else is not taking it away from me. What was the film? What was that film, that animation film, in which they predicted the future and they had everybody was big fat blobs being carted about on some sort of floating cloud or whatever it was, and robots were running the place because we just didn't do anything for ourselves. I think it's so important. This is why I do think that some elements of nostalgia, the people who could do things with their hands, create something from scratch with a few simple tools, have something, a craft that makes life satisfying, which is, I would rather then whittle a piece of wood and think I've created this than sit on a chair with a laptop or a screen just answering comments on Facebook or looking at reading face. That to me is what living is about, by actually doing something, doing rather than just constantly reacting to things. Terry Banton says, I understand your late father worked for the BBC. It's very true. He did when he was quite young, actually. And he used to test out the equipment in the evening at the BBC. Is it Portland Place? The BBC, the radio one. The broadcasting house. And they would play... If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise. If you go down in the woods today, you'll never believe your eyes. Today's the day. Anyway, they used to play Harry Hall's Teddy Bear's Picnic back in the day. Mark Burgess says, I recall back in college discussing the possibilities of technology taking away our jobs in the future because automation will enable us to fill our days with the arts and being creative. But not every... Yes, and those days are probably coming. And what have we got? I mean, when you think about the craftsmen in the old days who would make tables and chairs and things like that, and it would be made from local wood, and you would know exactly, you could know what tree it was that you were sitting on, that old John had created down in his thing, in his workshop, and it would last for years and years and years, and it would be a family heirloom. Nobody's, who is passing on IKEA stuff 100 years later down the line? That's what I want to know. Not very many, I can imagine you. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello, welcome along.
Is that you, Richard?
It's me, Richard, yes.
Oh, good man.
Who's that?
It's Mr. Ray.
Mr. A.
Mr. Ray. R-A-Y.
Oh, Mr. Ray. Hello, Mr. Ray.
Yes. Lovely shows, I've told you before. What I was thinking, when you was going to do the sort of the English part,
yeah,
where you sort of not try to start, but you said with the Anglo-Saxons, etc.
Oh, the history, yeah.
But, yeah. I think it'd be nice to start with Athelstan, and I think he was a grandson of a great king, but he went up to Northumberland, and he was the one that made our great country great.
Yes. I
think you should start from there, personally. I know it's difficult because everybody remembers the Norman conquest, etc., etc. But I think, realistically, you should start from there. That's what made our great Ireland great, or English.
Yes. I mean, wherever you start, you always have that. You've always got that problem of who came before.
We could start from Africa, couldn't we? That's what they say, don't they? Realistically, with
yes,
all sorts of things.
You don't have any written history for. You don't have any references for that, do you? That's the trouble. I mean,
no, but I think it's pretty well documented. It's how can one put it? It's only about 100 years or so apart from Norman the Bastard coming over, or whatever his name was.
William.
Or William the Bastard, yeah. Well, you called him Bastard, he shot you, haven't he? But no, we're joking aside. No, I think it'd be nice to start just slightly 100 or so years earlier and start from there.
Well,
personally.
Yes. And what happens if I don't?
Well, if you don't, I don't suppose you'll be telling the truth. Well, who knows? It's just, depiction, isn't it? But you'd never know whether you come from England or wherever. Or the War of the Roses, the 100 Years' War.
Yeah.
There's so much, isn't there? What can one do?
Well, exactly. I mean, the reason I wanted to do my history thing from the Norman invasion is that it's a point that people know the date of. Whereas you mentioned Athelstan, and most people would just look at you a bit vaguely and go, "What's that? Is that an apple? Did you say an apple?"
Yes, but they remember the Romans, don't they?
They do.
It's very difficult. One can't go back so far, otherwise the Brits, it goes on and on.
Well, yes.
But it's a difficult part of history to try and, get a grip on. But I think even at the very least, you should suggest, even if you don't start from there, that, blah, de blah, de blah. I remember that Septid R. I'm sure you've read it.
I've got it. Yes.
Yes, gorgeous, yeah.
Christopher Lee, not the Christopher Lee from the films. Christopher Lee wrote that, and it's based on Winston Churchill's A History of English-Speaking People. I've got I've got both of those.
Do you know what I was going to suggest the other day?
No, I don't.
It's hard for me to say it.
Go on.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but
I haven't.
They call it Alexa. I know everybody, but where you've got a lot on your plate, I'm talking now, bless her. Where you've got a lot on your plate, trying to get on and do things, reading takes a lot of time out of your day. How about getting an Alexa and you can get all them historical books on there.
All those?
You could have
all those historical books, not all them.
An awful lot.
Yes.
And be quite honest, it's you could carry on doing what you're doing.
Yes.
And just listen without having to take time out of your day to actually read it and do it.
Yes, it's true. You could, but I find that actually, if I read, and particularly if I read out aloud, even if there's nobody in the room, if I read out aloud, then I take in the information much more than if I listen to somebody else reading to me.
No, it's subjective. I understand. I suppose it all depends how much time you've got in your hands, isn't it? I mean, it's much better reading a book than watching a play or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The mind sort of drifts, but it's very nice if you get some, how can one put it?
I don't know.
All sorts of things. I think you'd like it. Truly, I do.
Yeah, well, I do. I've listened to audiobooks and all of that. But thank you very much for that suggestion about starting at Athelstan. You're a star. Thank you for ringing in as well, Mr. Ray.
No, of course. Yeah, no, it's no problem. What are you doing with that settee?
It's in my... I'm going to keep it for a while.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and sit on it every now and again. Maybe relax.
No, I know. All joking aside, the first one I saw, I'm a follower.
Yeah.
First one I saw, it did look good. Like a Chesterfield, wasn't it? It looked nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't fit in there. But the other one, I would take it back to him and say, look, the springs are gone. You can't do that. Get your money back.
Well, it's reasonably comfortable. It's in the house. I can't be asked to move it now. And I'll just put up with it.
I'll get rid of it if you like.
No, will you? Where are you? Where are you based?
I'll dump it.
No.
I'm only local. I'm only up the road. All jokes on, I am as well.
Oh, are you? I don't want it fly tipped anywhere.
No, when we fly tip, we take it back to the shop. They dropped it off outside anyway.
Oh, did they?
No, joker. Yeah. I think the other thing, the drone. You know the drone?
Yeah.
You know the other gentleman, the Yank in Britain, he's quite good, but he doesn't get a lot of views, does he? But he's got a drone that he does quite well with, and he said he spoke to you. Why don't you sort of liaise and try and, because I don't think he's a bad egg.
I don't know who you mean.
A Yank in Britain.
No, I don't know him.
No, he does it. I mean, it's the second one he's doing, but he's doing the drone and footage of, basically Bramber. I remember your one at Bramber Castle and does the Ada, etc. Yeah. But his camera angles, his photography is quite good. Maybe it's more luck than judgment. Who knows? But I'm sure, between the pair of you could put something together.
I'm sure we could. Well, thank you very much for the suggestion. I'm going to have to go because time is ticking.
No problem.
Good to talk to you. Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
God bless you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there we are. That's Mr. Ray referring back and talking about history and suggesting that rather than me try and start which I'm still sitting there thinking about the history project, and suggesting start with the Anglo-Saxons or midway through the Anglo-Saxons after, or just after Alfred the Great with Athelstone, who really became the first king of England. Quite right. Starsby says the sub-Saharan Africans were, in what we know as modern-day Sussex, Beachy Head Lady, for example, as a Roman Briton. Yes, there's a lot of contention about all of that. Connor McLeod says a lot of our DNA comes from Mongols, apparently. Yes, wasn't, what's his name? Attila the Hun, one of those. Michael White says, Starsby, you need to watch the History Debunked channel. Yes, I think Simon Webb has debunked a lot about that. You can come, it depends what you mean by sub-Saharan Africa, really. Actually, Bonnie H says, love Audible to listen to books whilst I'm doing mundane stuff. Don't blame you, good idea. Mr. Mocky says, I listen to The Nude Dude when I am doing boring stuff or waiting. Thank you very much. I'm sure that listening to The Nude Dude really fills your day with inspiration. Station Master's Choice says, have you thought of getting a throw for your sofa? I've thought about throwing the sofa, but at the moment I've just got a Union Jack on it, which makes me feel happy. Or rather, it's the Union flag, not the Jack, I know, because the Jack is the pole on the ship. Yes. Terry Banton says, I talk to Google Nest. Alexa gave me the sack. Oh, well, fair enough. Michael White says he has commented on a few of your videos, Richard. I don't know who you're talking about. Who has commented? And Sean James Cameron says, news, financial services company Admiral closed their offices in Cardiff and Newport based on a move towards hybrid home working. The new age is becoming. Well, we can talk about that in another Vobes show. I think that's fascinating. What is going to happen to big offices in the future? You wouldn't believe that people would be working at home. There was a huge suspicion about people working at home before COVID, but it's proved that obviously people can, and they'll put up with the child or the dog in the background barking. Not suggesting that all children bark, but some of them may be barking mad. Mr. Mocky says exasperation normally, but it's entertaining all the same. I'm not quite sure what he is exasperated about. Oh, the Naked Englishman, of course. Seabird says, I hate the way we get the news shoved down our throat 24/7 now. That is assuming you listen to the news 24/7, I suppose. The LO Recorder, Athelstan was King Alfred's grandson, was reputedly the most famous king of the Middle Ages. He was, after all, the first true king of all of England. Yes, that's exactly right. Thank you for that. And Seabird, I said that as if I was like an authority. Yes, that's exactly. Did you hate it when people say, oh, yes, that's exactly right? It sounds like you're putting. I didn't mean to put you down at all. That's. I've read a book about King Alfred, and in it talks that really he was the Alfred the Great. He was the germ of the first king of all of England. But of course, and any time I say that and I don't put the emphasis on the fact that it was him who put the germ of the idea of being one king across the nation. If I don't get my emphasis right on that, a million people will come down and auto-correct me and say, no, it was Athelstan. Athelstan was the first true king of England. And you're quite right, it was Athelstan. But Alfred the Great, he did a lot of great stuff in terms of... what was the book? He translated a book into English. I mean, a number of people did these great books where they did these translations so that the common people who at that stage probably still couldn't read, and most of them were still ignorant, but those people that could read and could read in English could understand some of it. Ray of Hope says, get some Christmas cheer early. I sent you a picture of the tree. Right, okay, let's have a quick look, Ray. Here it is. First Christmas tree. Don't tell me it's up. But here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Christmas has come early to the Vobes show. Goodness gracious. There we are. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? We are fast approaching the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for this 1 hour special. Nothing special about it. David Vad says Alfred the Great was a gerbil. Was he a gerbil? That's nice to know. I hate the way... Oh, you'll get the news shoved down us. Bonnie says, once you've retired, you have so much more time to fill. Perhaps another show on being retired. Well, happy to talk about any subject you like. That would be good. I don't know. I hear a lot about people who are retired who think that they've never been more busy and they never knew how they could fit work in with all the things that they do when they're retired. I think this whole notion about when you're retired, you just got to sit there and wait for the end is a disaster, personally. But we can talk about that on another day. Memory, says Stars B, is an interesting thing when it comes to history. There's more than one narrative. Absolutely right. I agree with you there. There certainly is. Obviously, you've got the victors, and then you've got the ones who weren't the victors, whoever they were. I forget. Conor McLeod says, no, it's November, for goodness sake. Yes, sorry about that. Well, you know. Daniel Watkins says, thanks, take care, everybody. Sorry I've been quiet tonight. Don't worry at all, Daniel. There's been plenty of people who've been speaking up. And Jackie Lowe says, it's not Christmas until Mum has had her birthday on the 5th of December, 90 this year. Everybody has their own personal time for the beginning of Christmas, I suppose. And Stars B says, I have a friend that's had their tree up since before the first COVID 3 years ago. Yeah, well, what's the point of taking it down, I guess. Mickey Bain says, I think the book that Alfred the Great wrote was Noggin the Nog. Yeah, it was a great book. And he drank a lot of the noggin, I believe. He nogged it right back. And Elaine says, as long as you're okay, Daniel. And Colonel Cragrat, he says, been retired 7 years and always busy. This is the thing. I think, I don't know that I could ever retire. I feel that I'm so busy with doing what I do, and I love what I do. And I thank you lot for coming and helping me do what I do, which is fantastic. We had other things I had in here to talk about. Maybe if I remember, I'd be interested to know. We spoke briefly on reading earlier today and listening to books that I read. One of my things is, what book are you reading? Don't tell me now. Tell me on Friday's show. Let me know, what are you reading? I'd be interested to know about that. And what is the most important thing in your life at the moment? They're two of the subjects for Friday's show. If you've got half a mind to join me, we'll be talking about that and anything else that you care to dish up. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Thank you to Bonnie and to Mr. Ray for calling in, to Sean James Cameron also. It's lovely to hear from you. And to Terry Banton, I think. Did you call in? I getting confused now on my callers, but thank you very much for calling. Thanks to Ray of Hope for the Buddy Holly, that was great, and to you for all the wonderful, marvellous comments. A big thank you to Judith and to Julia, who have been out there making sure everyone's behaving themselves and everything is completely understood. Another hour passes so damn quickly, isn't it? It's a shame we've cut that 30 minutes, but I don't get paid enough to do the rest, so what can you do? Life is too busy for you. I've got a little bit of reading to go back to and logs to be shoved on the fire. So that's me for the evening. Look after yourselves, take care, and I will see you on Friday at 8 o'clock. Don't forget, tomorrow from 7 in the morning, Dumpman and I go in search of a funicular, which is good fun. Till then, bye-bye.